Hello, I have a question for you. What came first, the chicken or the egg? My name is Ebube, and you are listening to Popcorn for Dinner. In this episode, we have to ask ourselves the question, do we get corporate dilapidation or do we get town dilapidation first? Did Lumen destroy a town, or was a town already terrible before they got there? Who do we blame? What do we want? Either way, I think it's about time we went home, don't you? In this episode, we finally check in with our good friend, Harmony Cobel, who has been gone for about 4 episodes. And I guess the response to that is, let's just have as much Cobel as possible. We get a sense of where she comes from, and we get a sense of what she wants going forward. And I think it contextualizes a lot of conversations that she's had in the past. I've been doing some research on this, but I figured it was time to bring in the experts. So joining me today, once again, is Chinedu, who has mixed feelings about Harmony Cobel, because she might be evil or she might just be misunderstood. Either way, Miltic is in her place now, and she doesn't like that. Is she murderous? Are they going to murder her? Maybe all of the above. Who knows? But the person with the actual answers is AJ, who is finally back from her hiatus. So guys, I think we should go to Salt Neck, but we might have to spend the night. What do you think?
No.
Not in that abandoned looking place.
Salt's Neck. Wow, what a name for a town. I don't know what state it's in. It's not clear what state anything's in this alternate universe that this show seems to exist in.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think this is kind of an interesting contrast because, I mean, last night I was watching The White Lotus, which has, you know, beaches and green trees, and then this is, and it's like this, you know, like you have these shots, these establishing shots that come in and you can see these wide, expansive beaches. And then, especially in this particular episode that just aired recently, episode 3, and, you know, you start Severance and it's also a wide, expansive shot that's establishing, but, you know, you're seeing snowed rocks and, you know, a white car that seems to be lost. This kind of thing where like you see somebody driving, it's like, why are you even here? Like, what could you possibly be looking for in this place? And that was the question throughout the episode. I mean, there was no way we could have known what she was looking for. But I just had the question, why is this place so run down? But, you know, location aside, how did you guys feel about the episode as a whole?
I think as usual with Severance, they always switch it up. And
Yeah.
it always lands well. I think this landed well as well. It was short. It was, I think, usually the episodes are about 42 to, let's just say, 50 minutes long. So this was probably
just under an hour. This was 37 minutes, yeah.
Yeah, it was on average probably 10 shorter than what they usually do.
Which is a long time.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. That's probably 2 extra scenes in there.
Yeah.
So I do feel that I speak for a lot of people when I say we wanted to see what she was up to and kind of her backstory, because they have teased it a bit. So this was a good way to answer some questions and also give us further questions. The town is a gloomy place. Her ex-lover, colleague, classmates was an interesting add to
What
it.
is bro's name? What is bro's connection? Like, I was like, bro, are you just here? You're not in danger. Like, it was so interesting because he gets up and he clearly does not want to be helping out here. Like, he just wants to pour his coffee and he wants to go home. But then she shows up and his mood changes and he's just like, ugh.
So, I mean, they were obviously in the Tide Fellowship. No, what's it called? In the
Wintertide Fellowship.
Wintertide Fellowship together, yeah. And he hates Lumen. So, and I guess he sensed that kind of hatred within her. And which is why he could help. But I mean, back to the episode question. Yeah, I thought it was a good episode, and I liked I always like seeing backstories of characters. The last one as well was the backstory of Mark and Gemma's love, so that was perfect. I loved seeing this one as well too.
Yeah, speaking of the backstory of Mark and Gemma's love, AJ, when we were talking about it last week, we were all like, man, she's definitely feeling something very strong right now.
She's eating it up.
So why don't you tell us? Why don't you give us a brief overview of what you were feeling when all that was going on?
I feel like from the start, I've always been team Mark and Gemma, because for a man...
Oh, really? We had no idea.
Please. Anyways, it was a very beautiful episode. I loved every single thing about that episode. It was like, the common description is that the episode was so warm. And obviously the writing in Severance has always been excellent, but I feel like they had to show us the love that existed between Gemma and Mark, which was so evident in the way the episode was filmed. But another thing I was thinking about watching that episode was like how we saw Mark's life, and how, like, you know, in season 1, Devon had said she brought out the best in Mark. And now we get to see how, like, she made his life so bright. And then we see, like, he didn't just lose his wife. He technically lost his, like, life.
His purpose, yeah.
Comparing, like, even the place he lives now, like, while he's working at Lumen, comparing to, like, the place they live together as a couple, it was
downgrade.
Like, it's so sad. And I felt so much, like, pain for him, like, concerning his grief, but also thinking about, like, Gemma and how, like, because obviously she decided, I don't know if it was voluntary or, like, if they kidnapped her, but, like, I feel like they sold her a dream about, like, okay, you're in so much pain, come with us and you're going to feel less pain. But what they're doing to her right now is more so, like, it's different levels of pain. It's like trauma upon trauma upon trauma. And yes, she's severed when she goes into these rooms, but it's like she still carries it with her. And she's asking, where is Mark? Mark she loves. And then that guy is saying, oh, he remarried and he has a daughter now. I was about to enter my TV because I'm like, what does that mean? Why would you say this to her? You're tormenting her every single day. You know she wants to be with Mark, but then you're like, oh no, he's married with a child.
Nah, the only response actually was to hit the guy on the head, and that's what she did.
I was so happy. And also, like, her running, getting into the elevator, thinking, I'm free, I'm going to escape. But she walks into that elevator, she comes out, and she's still severed. So it's like, even when you think you're leaving the lower level and you're going up to a different level, you're not even living as yourself, you're living severed. And then even still, her severed self wants to leave, but then Milchick, like, where did you even come from and why are you here, sends her back. And now I was just so sad for my girl. Like, it was just, like, so heart-wrenching. Like, I was feeling bad for Mark, but getting to watch Gemma that way, talk about, like, the heart of the show, because you're like, oh yeah, she's just a side character, yeah, she's why he got severed, but I feel like she's everything, like, at least to me now. Like, I love Mark, but, like, I need to focus on someone else moving forward, because we need to free my girl. We honestly need to.
Are you happy to have gotten that off your chest?
I think so.
I'm glad.
Is this the first time we've had someone put their hands on their head when they're feeling for a character on the podcast? I think it has to be.
No, this is real emotion. I wasn't entirely sure if you were fervently for Mark and Gemma or just fervently against Mark and Helly. But I see that it's the former now. It's probably you're just so for Gemma that like Helly
both,
can't win.
It may be both, so
wow.
I don't know.
Well, it's unclear how things are going to play out. I think this episode 208 is actually a really good follow-up to what happened in 207, because we're just continuing to get context. And there is a bit of a link too, right? Because we're seeing what's happening in terms of, Mark, and we get a sense of when all this is going on, because we see that Devon tried to call, which is interesting. She probably shouldn't have done that. I remember we were saying that they shouldn't have done that, but I like that they actually showed Devon's call reaching Harmony Cobel, because not only is it great attention to detail, but it establishes the continuity, because now we know that this is all happening after Mark's fall at the end of episode 6. So this isn't like retrospective, like, oh, what has Miss Cobel been doing? This is all in real time, which kind of in turn makes me feel, wait, has she just been like driving for the past like 4 episodes?
Driving.
She's been living out of that car, man. She was brushing next to the car. She's living out of it.
That's very interesting. But oh well.
Can we stop to talk about Devon calling Cobel
3 times?
Yeah, because the previous episode only showed one. And I think it makes sense
calling. So
she kept calling.
Last episode I didn't think that the call they didn't show what happened, but I know that Devon definitely tapped the call button, but we didn't know if the call went through or not.
I thought that she cut it. Yeah. So that means she called again, and the fact that she continues to call makes me feel like Regabi truly left.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, she 100% did. 100% did.
Wow, man. Regabi really actually peaced out.
She said amazing. No.
Wow. But based on the events of the episode and how it ends, we now see that Cobel turns out to be the person most equipped to understand what's going on with Mark and save him. Wow, discoveries were made indeed. But before we get into that, I think we should definitely talk about The White Lotus, or at least the fact that you should watch The White Lotus and then come listen to us talk about The White Lotus, because Bankole and Lolade are back. The Yellow Jackets crew, which also involves Bankole. I know he's in a lot of things, but bear with us, guys. But that show is pretty great, and the crew covering it has a lot of insights as to what really happened in that wilderness. I don't really want to know what happened in the wilderness. It's really scary. But I think the Invincible crew is doing an amazing job, because the most recent episode of Invincible, or at least the most recent 2, have maybe been the most devastating, like, in the show ever. At least to me. I think we're getting a good sense of, repercussions, damage control. Mark is starting to ask existential questions. I don't know if this is the start of his evil arc. I don't know what's going on, but I'm just enjoying it. But we're covering all these things on the podcast, and we're going to keep going. And we also covered the Oscars. We covered our predictions for the Oscars. It's unclear whether or not we'll cover our feelings about what actually happened at the Oscars, but I know some of us have thoughts. Having said that, what do you guys think of Sissy? Is it her fault that she's the way she is?
Yes. She
no grace whatsoever.
She reminds me of all those terrible Christians. It's you're a bad, terrible person. You know what you're doing, or your mindset, or whatever values you hold, they're wrong and they're terrible, but you still want to do it because that defines your whole person, your whole life. So I feel like she knows she has hurt people. She's lonely. She's alone.
And she's a pariah. Definitely people don't like her because she is championing the people who destroyed this town.
The one person that's in your life that you could call family comes back, and you're still terrible to them. I don't know what happened between both of them. Obviously, the whole thing with the tube and just the life they had and all. But it's just you're still this way. I felt like I've known that all my life, and I'm finally meeting her, and I'm just you're still like this. You're still evil. You're still I'm girl or lady.
I think it's not just the I think it's not even just the the tube thing. I think it's also who she was to her in her youth. On the wall when she's trying to open her mother's door, it says it's quarterly striver, 4th quarter, year of vision. And they called her youth apprentice matron, Celestine Sissy Cobel. So she was probably the person at the Myrtle Egan School for Girls who was actually whipping them up into shape. And that probably means that a lot was expected of Harmony, because her family was literally part of the people who were running things, and she was probably under a lot of pressure, but she still managed to excel, you know. And this recontextualizes a lot of Cobel's actions. It recontextualizes a lot of the things that she did and said, not just to the people on the 7th floor, but even to people like Helena Egan at the beginning of the season. You know, she said that everything she has, she earned through industry. And I was just like, industry is such an interesting word. Like, she was being industrious. What does that even entail necessarily? So to then find out that she was the person who created the severed chip, like the actual severance chip that makes all of this possible. And she has the blueprints in a freaking notebook. like this is the 50s. Like, I don't know, what are you, Charles Babbage? Like, this is kind of amazing. I don't know, like, what do we think of this reveal? I guess we might as well just like get into that now, because that's quite a discovery. And I think this show was kind of working its way up to it, because this is not the first time they've talked about the chip. I mean, in episode 6, Audi Mark asks Helena when she, you know, barges in on his dinner, despite the fact that he's thinking about his wife, and she says her name wrong. But, you know, I'm okay with that. I'm over that, I think. Regardless, he tells her that he's impressed, essentially, that she invented a revolutionary medical procedure, and then she said, that was my father. And that was clearly a seed being planted, because now we know that Cobel's relationship runs deep. So do you guys think this revelation will have far-reaching implications, or do you think this is actually going to lead to them silencing / getting rid of Cobel because they know that she knows too much?
Yeah, so that's a very good question. I think it sheds more light on what her motives are. I do think, I mean, when we say silence, are we talking about forever? Yeah, you know, as per just
like killing, you know,
straight up murder.
we knew, like, in episode 3 when she was walking up and we saw that bodyguard. Like, I've not forgotten that dude. Like, he traumatized me.
Yeah, it puts a lot of context into that conversation as well. Like you said as well, it puts a lot of context into so many things. Even how invested she is talking to the board, you know. Because she does feel that she's, even though everything belongs to Kier and, you know, all the credit goes to Kier and everyone, she does feel she's built this country.
Recognition.
Yes, exactly. And
acknowledgement.
You know, someone who's done so much for the company surely deserves more attention from the board. I'm not too sure, in terms of answering your question directly, I'm not too sure about where the company stands in terms of, you know, killing her off for good. But I do think that it gives some perspectives into her motives and her intentions. And then also, like, the fact that the show just showed us that she's a protege. She's really, really smart. I mean, I know we've always known that she's odd, but it's so good to learn so much about these characters. It's not just a flashback. And I know we talk about, you know, context, but we learn things about their characters, about who they are as people. And we know that
what drives them.
Exactly what drives them. We know that this is someone who's unique, who, you know, is a scholar, essentially. And it's amazing to just see that backstory of her character. I'm very interested as to where it goes. I hope it doesn't lead to, I know Cobel is a very strange woman, but I hope it doesn't lead to silencing her for good, because I like the role she plays in this show.
Yeah, I agree. For her to be away for so long, whenever she came back, like, I had a feeling it was going to be something significant. And I had a feeling it would be this episode too. I just didn't necessarily know it would be the entire episode dealing with that. But yeah, that kind of made sense. I mean, AJ, what did you think?
Yeah, I feel like I think I've always liked her. Like she was evil season 1, but I'm just like she has like drive and like she has something I liked. And seeing how like it was frustration because they obviously stole her everything, and now everyone says, oh, it's like Jane or Jim again that created like the sheep and everything, but it was actually her. And also like when someone creates something, they always want to keep on creating, like, okay, go deeper into like that creation or discovery or whatnot. And in season 1, she kept on trying to prove or point out to the board that like reintegration can happen. So I'm just like, is this something she was trying to do and then like they stopped her initially, like when she discovered it could happen? And like how does Rigabi come into play? Like were they working together? Why is Rigabi like so scared of Cobel? So like I don't know what she feels like. She was like, okay, you're calling Cobel, I'm leaving. So it's like she knows a lot, and I can now I'm like, okay, there's a reason why they let her call, or like they wrote Devin calling Cobel, because obviously now she's the one person that obviously will be able to help Mark because she knows a lot. But in terms of are they going to kill her?
Are they going to try at least?
Try. Lumon, try. They'll just do it if they want to. I feel like it will be interesting to kill her off, but I don't want them to, because I feel like there's so much more she could bring into the show. And I feel I would be sad, because I feel like with Gabby, we don't even have like any context as to, okay, like what year, when did you start working with Lumen? Why did you go against them? But like for Cobel, because we're getting to find that out now, them cleaning her off is like, I don't like, it will hurt the storyline because we need to know more. We need her. So I don't think we're going to lose her soon. But if that plays out, it'll be very interesting to see how that will work. So I don't know, but all that to say, I feel like I'm rooting for my girl because she's one of us. Men stole her idea and now she's left. She's been outcasted for what?
Fair enough. I have a question though. How, this is a question I wish I could ask the writers / the producers of the show. How far back do you think the creators of this show and the writers knew that Cobel founded the Severance chip? Because you know what I just remembered? I think this was episode 3 even of season 1.
I think they knew from the beginning, but go on.
You think they knew from the beginning? That would be very
because
interesting.
Everything adds up. Like I tried to recontextualize some of her past conversations.
Yeah.
And some things she's saying just make sense now.
But some of these writers are so brilliant. They're able to connect this to make it seem exactly like everything has always added up from the beginning. Like that just shows excellent writing. It doesn't mean that they've known it from the start.
At least from the beginning of season 2 process. Because
no, obviously.
Definitely. But like I think from the main beginning too, like from like season 1, because there's just a way that she has kind of ownership and responsibility over what goes on that floor. Yeah. That she's not just like management. Like she sees herself as a caretaker.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like we never see her even go into the actual MDR office. Like whenever we see her on the 7th floor, she's in her office.
Yeah.
Right?
Watching.
Yeah. She did step out. I think she was there when they were installing the doors, I think. I'm not too sure, but yeah, I think what you're saying is consistent in the fact that she didn't step out enough. She was at home at the time,
and then this guy,
the security guy.
I don't know why I'm blanking on his name right now.
Grainer?
Grainer, yes. So Grainer was he essentially made sure that the installation happened while nobody was around.
Yeah. Well, I think what spurred my question was I remember when at PT's burial, even before PT's burial, Grainer told her about the chip. He said, "This is PT," and then no. Sorry, this was that scene was after. But Grainer essentially asked her, "How is she going to get the chip?" I think that was Grainer, and then she replied, that she essentially said she was going to go to the burial and get it herself. And it then puts into perspective why she knew how to collect it and where the chip would be positioned. Because
exactly.
Milchick would never be able to do that. Nobody else should be able to know that. And I do think, if you're saying the writers have always known from the start, then it means almost literally nobody else knows that she's the brains behind all of this.
Just the people at the very, very, very top.
Exactly.
Including Drummond, who reached out to Sissy at the house. And Sissy, man, what a terrible family member. What a terrible family member. I mean, she spent the entire day, trying to find the blueprints for this. She didn't say what she was looking for because there's no way anybody would have known what she was looking for. She didn't tell Sissy. She didn't necessarily tell anyone. But she was also missing her mother, right? But, it's very weird to me because as soon as this lady held the book, I was afraid she tried to throw it into the fire. This was one time that I didn't want to be right, yet I was. And I actually thought Cobel might kill her if she succeeded because that's insane. I wasn't necessarily sure if Sissy would survive this episode, but she said that a Mr. Drummond called, and that's quite a lot. And there's a reason they're looking for her, right? In the beginning of the season, she was talking about, things that she knows and how they might be afraid of her. And I guess that knowledge is partly the fact that she knows the origins of the chip. And Helena was like, we fear no one, which is very interesting, But I wonder if those people who are coming, I wonder if A, they're people that Drummond sent, and B, Sissy called them, like to say, oh, Harmony is here, which would be so terrible. That's just so tragic. I mean, but shout out to bro with the truck, man. Like, he really just stood there and let her escape. Her car with all her stuff is just like randomly somewhere in the town, though. So that's not good. But
I think she only had toothbrush, to be very honest, because like her hair was messy.
But wasn't she packing up her clothes and stuff from the house into the car before she left?
But then, see, in terms of timeline, that lady has been driving. We don't know if she has stopped or where she, because like that one episode 3 or something, she was attempting to go somewhere and then she turned back.
Yeah.
Is that also like so?
I think she was planning to go to Salt's Neck. She was actually planning to go there, but she realized, okay, let me turn around first and see if I can like actually talk to these people. And then she realized talking to these people is not going to be a thing. They are going to kill me. So she went back again, right? And I like that she at least has, one person there. I mean, he talks about how, they knew each other as kids, when he talked about child labor, and it made me really think about how that contextualizes itself with what we're seeing now, because Miss Huang is going through the same process, and it makes me wonder, does she have a care shrine? I don't know. That would be interesting. There seems to be care shrines everywhere, like with this family, and the worship here goes really, really deep. All the little things people try to do to kind of escape their reality, which they end up not being able to. Having that shrine, trusting the Egans, even the fact that they have this weird liquid drug that they pour onto, like it. I don't even know how. Like they said, they were doing it at the age of 8.
I feel like that's the factory. Like it was a factory where they were exposed to these drugs. So obviously, like
definitely,
their
so maybe
kids
they are dependent.
They got but like Cobel, because like addiction works like differently for like lots of people. So even if they were exposed to it, they could be like less sensitive to it. And also, even if they leave, they could go back to it, right? So I feel like he obviously is addicted to it. But my issue now is, if they knew these, obviously they were kids, and if they knew, okay, this thing they're surrounding the kids with, like these kids could get addicted to it. Zuman, like it's just pure evil. Like child labor aside, because they could be sewing, they could be sweeping, they could be doing anything, but chemicals that could cause addiction to children that are 8 years old, It's so
it keeps them coming
twisted.
back. It keeps them loyal, right? I mean, she went to the Myrtle Eagles School for girls, and
Yeah.
she was looking through her yearbook. Um, uh, tome of annual reminiscences. She was the valedictorian. You know, I was starting to wonder if she and Jamie Egan had a thing. I mean, when she met with Helena in episode 2,
Mm-hmm.
she asked if Mr. Egan will be joining, and that dude is definitely avoiding her.
Yeah.
he is most definitely avoiding her. He's not trying to make contact whatsoever. You know, I think, you know, especially now that we know that Miss Huang took the same path, like these people essentially raise their soldiers from childhood.
Yeah.
I even feel like when she was searching that little shed place outside the house for the blueprints, we were hearing I think that was Akira hymn. So I feel like there's so much that runs deep with how the Egans run this global community of people that revere them. I mean, Jamie Egan already had like a full-on fellowship named after him, and I guess that started after, maybe it started at the same time that they were making / working on the chip. You know, it's called the Jamie Egan Wintertime Fellowship. Like, you know, and Harmony Cobel was the recipient of that in the Year of Wiles, which is kind of an interesting thing because we saw before the Year of Vision. So basically, the way, for example, the Chinese calendar has a different zodiac sign that is sort of the like the helm of the year, whatever year it is. These guys name their years after the 9 core principles, which is so wild. Like, that is just so deep on so many levels. For all we know, this currently is the year of Verve. It's hard to tell. And, you know, the fact that it runs deep in Cobel's own family is also sad because she clearly never stood a chance to escape. I mean, she's talking to Sissy and everything, and she's like, don't tell them I was here. At the very least, I mean, I'm guessing this person is her aunt or something, right? And she's like, I would never bear falsities to a steward of the Egans. Which, good God, man. Like, your family member might be in danger. Like, Lumen destroyed this town, but there's someone like her who believes the town owes its existence to them. And that is just so, like, hurtful in so many ways. I feel like I feel like Cobel is trying to break free of something here, and maybe this is her kind of like turning. I mean, she probably shouldn't come back here. Like, they have to use lanterns; it's bad for her eyes. But at the same time, like, I hope that coming here ends up being worth it, and it really changes things. You know.
I don't think she's turning. Like, do you mean turning like turning good?
Quote unquote, maybe. Like, at the very least, I feel like she doesn't want Mark to die. So I feel like she's not going to let Mark die. It's a question of whether she can get there in time. I mean, if it took her 4 episodes to drive here, I don't know how long she's going to get. But yeah,
I feel
don't
like
know.
it's more so like she has a point to prove. She's coming to take back all she's owed, and Mark is like an avenue to do that, because for sure it's not because she suddenly now I'm thinking, is it because of Gemma she was keeping like a close eye on Mark, like from the start with that whole situation? Like, even thinking back to like when Mark went to the room with Miss Casey. What's the room called?
The Wellness Center.
Wellness. And like, she was watching and she kept on, Milchick was like, oh, should I stop it? And she's like, oh, hold on. She was waiting to see something.
Yeah. She wanted to see if maybe they would remember each other and stuff.
And they would remember. Now, seeing how like she created the chip, I think it's one of the situations where it's like, okay, she's watching her like her subjects, not subjects, like, what do they call her test subjects, I guess. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, is that why she was like watching Mark closely? Because I keep thinking it's not because she cares about him, or maybe like there's context we're missing. Maybe they knew themselves. I don't know. There's some form of connection we don't know about, but like, I feel like she's trying to prove a point about like reintegration, trying to take ownership to like what she's owed, literally. Yeah. So it's not like,
because the board just denies its existence. It's not as if they kind of talk to her about it. It's just like, oh, the board does not acknowledge reintegration.
Yeah.
Which reminds me, we haven't seen Natalie in a while. But anyway, go on.
And I feel like that's now like realizing the fact it's not just like her wanting to run the severed floor, it's her being the one person that would know how to run it. So I feel like her saying like, oh, like Milkshake doesn't know anything or whatever, like it's kind of valid.
Now
Like
that actually has some context. Like, she wasn't just saying that.
Nothing against Milkshake, but like, bro, like you don't know anything. Like, just calm down. So I feel like Cobel, like I'm rooting for her because having something like that stolen from you, like no credit whatsoever, and now they're trying to like cast you out for no solid reason. Like I'm like, girl, like maybe get your leg back.
Yeah, you know what? You know who I think about sometimes? I think about that intern who came up with Spotify Wrapped only to never be mentioned or compensated by the company. That's what I think about sometimes. And this episode is basically that. Like, this place and like this show, it always really ends up hitting all the touchstones of corporate life in one way or another. You know, and today we're focusing on the principle that the boss's ideas are theirs and your ideas are everyone's.
You know,
the fact that she designed this ship is almost chilling in its implications because it's so illuminating. It's indicative as well of the fact that she's probably in danger, right? That guy that she left behind, and even Sissy, who knows what's going to happen to them whenever whoever is in that vehicle shows up, right? It's hard to tell, and Sissy herself probably would even welcome any retribution for allowing Cobel to enter. You know, she said that her mother's room stays shut until all who remember her sit with Keir. Ew, first of all, I mean, ew. Like, I heard that and I was like, good God almighty. First of all, how would they even open the door if they're all gone? Help me understand. Just help me do the math on that. And then she asks her why she brings nothing but woe into her life. Like, she even speaks in terms of the tempers. And bro, who is against Luma now, letting Harmony escape, you know, he also is speaking that way. I think that's just ingrained in him from this point. He's like, come tame these tempers, assholes. You know, he's ready. And I don't know, there's clearly, you know, a sense of abuse. You can tell that this lady, as the matron, quote unquote, whipping the girls into shape was somebody that you just didn't want to be around, somebody you wouldn't have fond memories of. I mean, that slap was heavy.
Yeah.
You can only imagine what was going on when they were young.
Even outside of the girls, like I feel like she also worked in the factories because she had said sorry,
maybe all the kids worked there too.
Yeah, because she said she doesn't let people like the guy come into her house, and then Cobel said, oh, you're the one that puts him on it in the factory. So she's all levels of like evil and not a good person, but she's holding on to like care, like care will save her. She's going to hell, as if hell exists on the show, but like she's just very creepy and strange. But yeah,
I mean, everybody is a little strange. Even Harmony on some level. Like when she found the key, she shouted, "I found it!" It's like she's not celebrating with you. why are you letting her know?
Yeah.
Oh my God! Like it reminds me of when that guy found Devon's baby. It's like, I found the baby. It was me who saved her. So
But,
I don't know.
Yeah, I think with Sissy, that's her name, right?
Yes, Sissy, Celestine Cobel.
I think her entire mentality is a classic case of history is told by those who wrote it. So she vehemently believes that this company, no matter this destruction they've caused, you know, it was non-existent before they came, and they've built it. So I guess in a way they have the right to do with it as they please. It's almost similar to, well, let me not say anything controversial, but yeah, it's a very, very strong belief system. And I think it shows how well the show writes characters, because what they've done with Sissy, it takes you a few episodes. In most shows, it takes you quite a while to get into the character and form a strong opinion on them. The actress's performance was excellent. I mean, we need to give a shout out to her because she managed 100%. To do this in she wasn't even there at the first maybe 10-15 minutes, so she did this all in 20 minutes. perfectly done. So
You feel like you've known her, like because you know someone like her.
and I'm telling you
right?
that a backstory on her episode, nobody would mind that at all. Just because of how complicated she is and how well written her dialogue and the character is. So yeah,
They're fleshed out.
top
Yeah,
notch to them. Top marks to them.
man. I mean, everybody has been so deeply affected by this. I feel like even the fact that you can see vestiges of Lumen's ownership of this town, maybe it was established by them, you know, you can see those vestiges everywhere. Like you can see their old logos. You can see the fact that, you know, their name is literally on the side of that factory. And you wonder, like, clearly this is one of those things where, you know, an industry or something was created and a town was built kind of around that. And we see examples of that in today's world. And some big companies still do things like that. And lives get controlled, lives get destroyed.
Big oil
and
companies.
those lives are treated as disposable.
Yeah.
It's really something. And, you know, while they were having that initial meeting at the factory, you know, and it was giving the good, the bad, and the ugly, I wondered what was going to come of it. Like, if they're going to stay adversarial. She says that they were chums and everything, but clearly there is affection between them. And I wonder what that history was. And I now want to know what her history with James Egan is as well. You know, like, he probably didn't have to go through the same quote unquote child labor. Like, he was the heir to the Egan dynasty, right? So I wonder how they got together. I wonder how her potential became clear to him and the family, such that she was brought on to basically do this thing that is now changing the world. Like, think of all the billions, maybe even possibly trillions of dollars that will be made from Severance being fully legalized. Like, just think about that for a second, right? And think about the fact that Harmony Cobel is not going to see any of that.
No.
Like, come on, like, at least throw somebody like a little bit of a bone here. It's like all this lore is steeped into them so that they feel it is, you know, it is their own prerogative to give everything that they have as people to the Egans. Even when she was meeting, you know, at the factory at the beginning, she says, you know, Kier and Imogen, or Imogen, I guess is what she called her, depending on how you pronounce the name, met at the ether mill. And it's like, man, these stories, you guys don't even know if they ever truly happened. Like, you just base your whole life around this. And it's definitely a commentary on religion. But
100%.
I wonder how that will affect, like, her own practical choices moving forward for the rest of the season.
Yeah, because
I guess Kier's knowledge is for all.
Yeah, one question I was going to say, just, you know, bouncing off that, is you know, we know she's anti-Lumen. Is she anti-Egan? So, you know, that's that one we're yet to find out, because we know how interwoven.
I mean, she might still be a loyalist on some level. Because, for example, would she still be? Would we call her anti? Like, what if she gets back and they actually offer to bring her into the fold, make her higher than Drummond? In fact, would she take that over, like, do quote unquote doing the right thing? We don't know yet.
It makes sense why she had the audacity to demand such a high level role as well. So yeah, she
and I'm now annoyed of that meaningless role Helena was trying to give her in episode 2, where she was like, what does that even mean?
No, to be fair, actually, no, I'm getting it mixed up. No, she wanted to go back and just watch over the 7th floor.
Yeah,
but
she just wanted her old job back, her current job.
Yeah, Helena wanted to give her a promotion, quote unquote, but only God knows what that promotion entailed.
A role where she would have just been a figurehead.
Oh God. But yeah, I mean, in terms of the commentary on religion, it's interesting because, you know, like I said, I think a lot of the times we find that belief systems are mostly, or, you know, it can be sometimes, you know, this person came at this time and, you know, history just unfolded in that way. So Lumen happened to, or the Egans happened to land in that town at that time, and everything else in terms of what the people believe in has just come from that. So yeah, I think it's a very good episode. I like the commentary. I like the characters. The 2 new characters that they introduced to us, because we don't often meet new characters, especially in this season. I don't think we've met Bert's partner. We've met, what's the name of Dylan's partner?
Gretchen.
Yes. But other than that, I think these 2 are the next new ones that we've seen. So yeah, it's good to always have new cast members.
And it's always good that, again, that they're so fleshed out, right? Like, it just gives us a lot to chew into.
Yeah, 100%.
When she makes her getaway, Firewoman by The Cult is playing, which I think was a good choice. The episode was directed by Ben Stiller and written by Adam County and Casey Perry. And I like how all these different perspectives still kind of fits the vision of the show. Like, it really feels like we're watching one unified story, just despite the fact that there are so many, talented writers that are working on this. And I know that it's definitely going somewhere, which is why I think maybe it is time to maybe just for once again open up the Fifth Appendix, because I'm thinking about how this episode and the previous episode 207 together, like when viewed together, I know they're very different, but if we view everything that's happened kind of together and try to piece them, we may see certain things that could affect what's going to happen going forward in the show. And if you're new here, the Fifth Appendix is the segment in our Severance coverage where we talk about, well, theories and the like going forward. I have a few questions regarding Gemma and what was going on in 207. So I'm going to put a tinfoil hat on just for a moment, so bear with me, y'all. Okay, I kind of wonder, right, if everything Gemma is doing in each room, like not now that we've seen obviously the implications of Cobel's, I guess, reach and influence on what Severance was doing in the beginning, and in 207 we got a sense of what Severance can actually do, and we were also crucially introduced to the idea that somebody can be severed into many people, not just one. Right? That is actually a paradigm shift in the show. Like, let's not downplay that, right? So I wonder if everything Gemma is doing in each room could be a quote unquote testing floor for a variety of use cases of fully legalized severance, right? Instances and situations for people to use it to escape stuff that they dread or simply can't be bothered to pay attention to.
Yeah.
Right? I don't know if anybody else felt that way, right? Like things that range all the way from getting on a plane to, writing thank you notes, or even going to the dentist or giving birth, right? They even ask Gemma each time if she remembers anything and how she feels in each room. And with all of that in mind, and seeing also a little bit of Cobel's past, what could Cold Harbor be? Like, for example, the Wellington room was the dentist, right? But what experience, assuming I'm correct, right? What experience could be waiting for her in Cold Harbor that they need Mark to finish, quote unquote, coding / refining?
Apparently,
it's probably something traumatic.
Yeah. I saw somewhere.
A car crash, maybe? Some other near-death experience?
I think
something relating to childbirth?
Someone said it has to do with drowning, but car crash is actually quite apt for the character. But I mean, that would be straight. Okay, tying those two together, that would just mean you being severed when death is happening.
Yeah.
But, so you don't experience.
And it's like, can
death.
they do that? Would
Death
that
is
play then
something that
into the
doesn't
idea
happen.
that they're trying to
Death
resurrect
is-
someone?
Yeah. Because when you also think about like how like they went into the church as well and told them like when your ini has a soul as well and your ini soul could be saved. So it could be a situation where it's more so like they're going to use whatever they're doing to sell the idea that like even when you die, you don't fully die or something.
What is dead may never die. Oh my goodness.
I 100% do believe that the chip is being used to avoid dread, though. I don't know about uncomfortable situations, but
Dread as in the concept, or dread as in the literal temper?
sorry, pain, basically. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm so sure that they're going to market the chip as a pain avoidant, or having to just
Exactly.
go around that. I don't know how they would intertwine it into uncomfortable situations, because why would I want to get severed for a thank you note? I could want to get severed for flights. 100%, I hate flying. So if they sell me that use case, sign me up, bro.
I don't even
Yeah,
think it's
a lot
thank
of
you
people like
note,
that.
that one scene. I don't think the core of it was like the thank you note. I feel
Maybe it
like
was just going to holidays with like unsavory people, like all
Uh,
those.
People.
the marriage
Unsavory
itself.
I
I feel
unsavory
it
is
was the
being
marriage.
nice.
Because even the way he was like,
Interesting.
oh, I told you I love you. I'm sorry, I said I love you. And she had to say it back. And just
But we
like
see
how
later
she
that
wasn't
was taken
happy.
from her life.
Yeah, as
Because,
well. But she wasn't just
how
happy
long have they
being
been watching
there
them?
and she was severed. She wasn't there as Gemma. She was there as a severed person. But she wasn't happy being with her husband on holiday. So I don't think it was the dread that came from using her left hand to write thank you notes. It was just like the dread that came from celebrating Christmas with someone she doesn't want to celebrate Christmas with. Because even walking out of the room, she was already irritated, like, I want to leave. And that was in
Fair
Gemma.
enough. Fair enough. But
So
I think maybe I think my theory from like a little while back, it's somewhat cooked now. So I'm about to sound crazy, but here we go. I'm wondering, okay, if what's going on in that room could be something related to indentured servitude, maybe even something as far as like not necessarily slavery, but it's as though like when you're severed, it's like you're making a part of yourself work for you for no compensation. And in this case, that part of these people is working for Lumen, but the Lumen establishment has made it very clear that they don't see Innies as people, right? And they teach that point of view to their acolytes, as we see with Miss Wong. And I think this may lead to a point where we work in the potential thematic connections of the real Cold Harbor from the Civil War. Like, what if, for example, Cold Harbor, like, I'm thinking about the words that have been used, right? Regabi tells Devon that Cobel is a soldier, right? And I think that's an interesting choice of words. It's definitely apt, but I wonder if there is some literal meaning in there. Like, what if, for example, Cold Harbor has something to do with fighting battles or simply being in a war zone? Like, what if that's the experience that she's going to meet inside that room, right?
So they could sell it to the military.
Exactly. And I remember in episode 1, right? This is kind of how long I've been thinking about this. In episode 1, when everybody was reunited, well, everybody except Helly, who was not Helly, we saw this painting of Kier and 4 people that seemed to be in like quicksand or something, and he was wearing a Civil War outfit.
yeah.
And you think about when the actual Civil War happened and how it is eerily coincidental with the time that Kier was alive and the CEO of Lumen. And you wonder, was that going on at that time? Like, was there somebody that the family lost that they're trying to bring back? Was there some experience there that they're trying to kind of get away? Are they trying to kind of create a situation where if they do resurrect Kier can still be Kier, but he'll be able to go through all the things that happen in the normal world because he will be severed from all of them, which then allows him to keep his Kierness, so to speak. Like, what if there is a link to that battle? Because Cold Harbor was an actual battle that happened in the Civil War, and it's interesting that they're calling it that. Like, what if they need people to kind of serve them as though they were gods? And this show, this world, is actually taking place in a quote-unquote alternate universe where the Civil War ended differently. Like, what if we're in a what if this show is in a world where like the other side won, and there's like a whole new set of dynamics for the people who have been descended from the winners and the losers. Like, what if Lumen is founded primarily on principles of just torment and viewing certain types of people as subhuman, right? The show goes very deep in kind of letting us know that nothing that we see is accidental. Like, everything we look at is put somewhere. I'll give you an example. When we talked about episode 7 last week, I reflected on like the gravity of what Lumen has stolen from Mark and his family. And I think, it goes even deeper than we thought, which is saying something because it's quite deep, right? Because for one, we know that they've been watching Mark and Gemma and their family literally from the beginning. Putting aside the fact that they met at a Lumen event and went to a Lumen fertility clinic when they were trying to have a baby, which then also links to Cobel, because when she's trying to pose in their lives, who does she pose as? A lactation agent. So, I mean, there is all this stuff about childbirth and life and kindling life that is sort of all around how these people are approaching everything and how Lumen is trying to control these people. And like, all the themes just kind of line up because they clearly surveilled them in other ways and even asked invasive questions because they have all kinds of things on them.
Yeah.
And I know this because I watched that episode again, like 207 with my family, and I noticed something. That Chikai Bardo card that Gemma is working on when she's explaining the concept to Mark is basically the same card that Dylan took from O&D, who are clearly trying to make a new version of that card set, maybe to show one of the severed versions of Gemma. And now this makes it clear why Lumen would so urgently want that card back, such that they ran an OTC just for Milchick to speak to Dylan at his house. Like, it was that important to them. The calisthenics that we see her doing in her room when she's alone, like, they also reflect the pose shown on the card while she's in her own like figurative Chikai Bardo, this like ego death where she's between states of life and death. So like, I suppose the summary of this is that Lumen is pure evil. Like, this is deep. This is actually very deep. And I don't know, like, now that we've seen all that and we've seen what Cobel's role in all this is going to bring in, it's like, where do we go from here? Like, what could they be cooking? Like, what could be happening in these final 2 episodes? They could actually be devastating. Have I made any sense whatsoever?
I think I would speak to the military parts. Whilst you were talking and whilst you brought up the military bit, something I remembered was the Black Mirror episode where the soldiers had this implant. I don't know if you both have seen it, but the Black Mirror episode where the soldiers had an implant where they were in places where they were posted and they saw the locals as monsters. So that implant made them see the locals as monsters. And obviously this military to them,
dehumanizing them so that it was easy
exactly. So the military officers, the military people, they were seeing these people as evil and etc. I mean, tying that back to what Lumen is doing, I do think it would be interesting if they're making this chip for the military to be able to carry out their actions without any sort of repercussions for the soldiers mentally, because a lot of soldiers and a lot of armed forces and veterans suffer from PTSD. So if you have your INI carry out these actions, it's either you die or you have no remembrance of that whatsoever. And that would change everything. It would change everything for the military. And it's something like that Drummond is talking about. And we don't know what universe Severance is set in. We don't know, if war is an impending thing, we don't know. But it would be very, very fascinating if they're creating these chips, or if Cold Harbor is a project for the military at all. Just bouncing off what you said, and just to make sure that, PTSD is not something that's existent and they can, kind of carry out their actions in specific places without ever feeling anything for the locals or, what they're doing, pretty much.
But my thing is that, like, because the PTSD happens after, right? So it's like, if they're trying to do the chip in such a way that, like, they would be able to do whatever they have to do during war without the trauma, it wouldn't be PTSD because like that's post. It has to be something like just making them robots, essentially robots in war. So I'm just trying to like figure out how like the trauma will come into play, because I know like that trauma happens after. So it's like something relating to trauma, because I feel like on a normal, when these men and women go to war, there's that like aspect of like that humanity that's stolen from them, that they don't even care who they're killing or what's happening. They're just in war.
Yeah.
So I feel like for Lumon, the way I'll process it, because they're so evil, it's more so like they are looking for people like Gemma, because I don't know why you carry a woman to come and be doing all this type of testing for war. That's confusing. So I feel like it's more so they're looking for people that like they can control, that will mindlessly say, yes, I will serve you. Yes, I will go to war for you. Like
And
that
that way
disconnect.
they can control the world.
Exactly. But I don't see how war will come. I don't know. Like, obviously there's this big picture we're not seeing right now. But war is just so like war, like that's where we're at. Like war.
No,
Yeah, I mean,
essentially. No, it doesn't have to
just
be
medical
war, but-
industrial complex meeting the military industrial complex.
Exactly.
Like, that wouldn't
Yeah.
necessarily
It's
surprise me.
those we know
specific.
how much, for example, we know how much the US military budget is every year. You know, that's something that's
Mhm.
if you just only sell that to the US military, you've made a killing. Like
Yeah.
and in terms of the trauma, I think it's because, you know, once you're carrying out these things, like, you know, imperialism, for example, and if the chip activates, your innie is doing these things, so you don't even get the trauma after, because you don't remember
Yeah.
what you did. So, I mean, it's fascinating. Let's see where it goes. I think we could possibly be so off the mark
Yeah.
that we'd look back
Yeah.
at this episode and just laugh.
I mean,
our
it's
heads off.
just a thought, honestly. But I just been wondering if they're dropping hints at something much larger here, and there's definitely something larger. It's just a question of what it is. But
Yeah.
I think we're at a point now where we have a fair amount of clues to understand at least the context of what Cold Harbor could be. So now we can guess, like, okay, what is this? Before, like, it's just like, okay, Cold Harbor, what is the meaning of this file? Like, why is it important? But now that we know that each room is some kind of experience, it's like, okay,
Yeah.
what's going on in there? You know, and I guess at some point we'll find out. Like, the finale of this season is actually titled Cold Harbor.
Crazy.
So I think we're gonna know. But like, before this is over, we're gonna know. So
hopefully we don't lose
Yeah.
Gemma, because if I lose my girl,
it's
I
crazy
would-
because I mean, Drummond was
We're
telling.
100% losing someone.
Yeah,
Whether
I
we
wonder
like
who it
that
will be.
person or
Whether it's
not is up
Milchick,
to the
Cobel,
writers.
like,
fingers crossed it's
Mugabe.
Milchick.
wow.
Whoa. Want the black
Wow.
man to die?
I was running that. That's crazy.
I mean, at least give him a chance to change his ways, a chance to, you know, come over to the light side or something. Like, man, I don't know. This show is just so good. The writing is amazing. I'm looking forward to seeing where things go, and I'm looking forward to breaking it down more. This is probably a good place to call it, but we will definitely be back next week. We're probably going to be shocked / frazzled as to whatever is happening, because we essentially just got 2 contextual episodes back to back, which means that we learned a lot. So with that new knowledge, they're probably going to show us something absolutely insane.
Yeah.
Yep.
So
100%.
I think everyone should kind of just mentally prepare for that. And once you're done with that, we will be here to work it out with you. So thank you all so much for listening up until this point. Thank you to Chinedu and AJ for listening to me ramble with my tinfoil hat. But like I said, we're going to keep going. And yeah, until next time, be well.
Thank you, guys.